Hello, it's Pete here, and welcome to AI Delve. Like AI, like education? Well, listen to Cathy Brown talking about AI and education. Simple. Looking at your LinkedIn profile, you are a multi-hyphenate, are you not? You know, you've got lots of different things going on. So,
Yes.
what's the average day like for you, or is there no average day for you?
It really isn't. I just do the next thing that I want to do, basically. I have a few appointments around, but I'm very interested in the looking at AI and how it can be usefully integrated with education. And we also do film production and those types of things. So I'm looking at how it can be integrated in those to get rid of the boring tasks, really, to get rid of all of the very boring things. And I think there's great potential for that. And at the moment, there's a lot of pushback. I saw something recently from you guys about how teachers aren't using it and they don't know how it's going to save them time, and that they don't believe that it's worthwhile using, et cetera, et cetera. Just a recent article. So it's quite amazing to me the people that are doing this are really the ones who are not using it. Once you actually get someone to use it, so I'm doing a few videos and writing some things, hopefully to inspire people to at least give it a go. So if they give it a go, they're pretty hooked.
Mm.
So
Of course, yeah. So you have been posting some examples of working with 7-year-olds, for example, with AI prompts, with using ChatGPT and to look at facts or to critique the whole
yeah.
notion of facts. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it was a lesson I was giving that I wasn't sure. I had no intention of it ending up where it did, but they were reading a book called Wanda, which is about an Australian dingo. And I came into the classroom to talk to them about using and developing prompts to create characters. So a text prompt to create an image, basically. And that was my intention. And what happened was they talked to me about this book. And I thought, well, we'll use this book and we'll create the characters that they envisioned from this book. But I hadn't read the book, didn't know what it was about particularly. So I just pulled Chat GPT up and said, could you give me a character breakdown of the characters in the book Wanda? And this was in front of the children. My idea was to get them to see some descriptions of characters and then write a description that would, in a text format, that would develop an image that they thought was useful. So what came up on the board was the main character is Wanda, and Wanda is a kangaroo. And the kids cracked up. They laughed uncontrollably because in the context of that, they actually knew that that Wanda was a dingo, and they knew that fact. And he was AI getting it wrong, which was just splendid. It was so great. So I corrected the AI, and the AI then came back with a better description of Wanda the dingo. But then I thought, well, what's happening here is we need to look at what is a fact. And I want the kids to talk about how they felt about that. And the AI got it wrong in this instance, but their knowledge actually allowed them to examine that and determine if it was true or not. So
Mm.
they then got into, I sent them into groups and I said, well, you tell me what a fact is. The AI's got this wrong. What actually is a fact? How do you know a fact is a fact? So they went off into their little groups and wrote on their whiteboards sentences about what a fact was. And the results were just amazing. And the last line of one of them that was terribly impressive to me was, well, sometimes you just know a fact is a fact, and sometimes you know it isn't a fact. And that's when you should go and check. And
Mm.
I thought 7-year-olds, they know all about this. They know how to check things. They already have the language and the knowledge in context to question something that they see perhaps that was unassailable, the
Mm.
AI, and use their own judgment, which is exactly what you want to do. But that's what I think is really important with any of this ethics in AI, is to actually have it in context and have the discussion with the use of the AI rather than sit it outside it and give it as a separate lesson, which a lot of people seem to be talking about. But this was just too much of a splendid opportunity to bypass, which was great.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And there is a lot of overthinking going on, isn't there, with AI or around AI, especially with the older children, around the older children, that terrible things will happen. And as you've said, if we keep it simple, this is the fact, this is not the fact. Let's find out. Let's be critical. It's a relatively straightforward process.
Well, it was interesting because I was able to say to them, well, what makes you doubt this fact? And they said, well, we have the evidence here in the book. It's written in the book that we're reading. So the AI is wrong. So they were looking at evidence sources. They were looking at all of the things everybody's very keen for them to look at in context, in the lesson. So we didn't do the character prompts at all. We moved on to philosophical, ethical issues. And it was interesting because at the end of that lesson, which was a demonstration lesson as well, I went into my VTAI prompter, which I have, and it is a free tool that does lesson plans. And I wrote in what we did, and I said, give me the outcomes. And because I've got all of the New South Wales Education Department outcomes already uploaded, it could then adjust the outcomes for the lesson that I just taught as opposed to the one I'd intended to teach. So that was a very quick way of, going, well, let's align it to the curriculum as well, which I find very helpful. Yeah, that part is really accurate. Yeah.
There's more good news when it comes to AI as well, because you posted on LinkedIn a couple of days ago too about how teachers are already doing what AI does. An example being that teachers already give clear, concise instructions, and that's of course what you have to do when you're prompting ChatGPT and so on.
Exactly. They give clear, they know their audience. So when you're giving a great prompt to ChatGPT, you usually set the audience up. They also know the tone. So when I'm prompting ChatGPT, I'll say, well, I want it friendly, I want it professional, I want it authoritative. Teachers already know the tone. They already know that they want some leeway in terms of outcomes, so that they want some more difficult tasks or some easier tasks or some simpler ideas or some more complex ideas. So in fact, teachers already, you're right, do know how to prompt. In fact, they're probably better than tech heads because they know how to give clear instructions from the beginning. They know how to align those instructions to an audience, which is their class. So all of the things that prompt engineering teaches, they're doing it daily in a classroom. Mm-hmm. So I think they should be brilliant at it if you can get them over the hurdle of actually giving it a try. Well, I think what I find is the best way to use AI is guided, what I'd like to call guided AI, where you use it with the whole class and you demonstrate how you're using it and then get them to ask the questions. One of the other little assistants that I made was one called Super Teach, which is one where the students have to teach the AI how to do something. And they can choose, they're the teacher, and then they can choose the student, and the student can be disruptive or funny or serious or any of those things. And they have to teach the AI a concept or an idea that they're doing. And so in that restricted space, they're having to remember all of the things they know about a concept or an idea, and then put that down in words. And I've usually got them hooked up so that they can use the audio like on an iPad or something like that. So they're not actually typing it in and they're teaching the AI. So that's another interesting use case. The other one that a lot of the kids are really enjoying is Super Task, which is an AI that is for review or revision or an introduction to a topic. And so you give the the super tasker, and there's a few of these around as well. The grade level, you give it the topic, you give it a name, and you don't want to put your full name in, but sometimes it's a whole class. For me, sometimes it's, 6H or 5M or something like that. And the AI will then ask questions, because I've got it programmed to be a Socratic approach to questioning, and it will answer questions, and you can go off task to a degree, but not a whole lot. So it then runs through a question, takes you through the whole. I often use the water cycle as an example, the whole of the water cycle. And if you want it to make up some jokes, it will, and it's all within that topic. And then at the end, it will give you an evaluation of your performance with the AI for the whole class. That's a lot of fun in terms of things I think are important, which is enthusiasm, creative thinking, critical thinking, engagement, etc. So I'm not even interested in how many questions they particularly got right. I'm interested in their enthusiasm, enjoyment of the whole concept and the topic. And that works really well with small groups as well. In New South Wales, they've just released New South Wales EdChat, which the kids can use, but it's not a Socratic AI. This one that I'm using is a Socratic AI. It doesn't require login or payment, or doesn't collect data, doesn't do any of those scary things everybody's worried about. And it's really interesting to see the kids engage with that. I get them to work in groups. They come up with responses and questions in relation to what the AI is saying, and they find it really easy and engaging to use. And
did you create these within ChatGPT 4.0, or was it a bespoke?
I use Chip AI, and the reason I use that is because originally ChatGPT wouldn't allow you to use the agents unless the other person who was using them had paid. They've now changed that, so you could develop them within that context. However, in New South Wales, in a school, I can't demonstrate that to a staff room because ChatGPT is blocked.
Yeah.
So Chip bypasses that for me, and I can set it up as an app and then actually demonstrate it and use it.
Tell us about Chip. I wasn't familiar with that.
Chip AI is a assistant builder, and it's very good. It has a number of additional features it's a very easy interface, a number of additional features that I rather like. There is a free option and a paid option. But when you're working with the OpenAI, create your own GPT, you can do that quite well, but there's not as much flexibility as I find I get with Chip. And it's a more interesting experience. I don't know if you had a play with them on the website. The ones I make, I'm not charging for, and no one logs in for, because I want them to be available. And my intention is, if a school would like to work with me, we can set those up for that school. So you can upload all the PDFs for your curriculum, for instance, which you're probably aware of. And they can be referenced either tightly or more generally, so you still get some input from a general AI situation. But I just like the flexibility. Chip, I can block off, for instance, image generation, or I can block off web search, or I can block off different elements that I don't want involved in the AI as they're going, which is very helpful if you're working with kids. You don't want access to certain things. So I find Chip's been really, every time I think I'll swap back, I think it offers more flexibility in what it does. And they've just brought in some capability options as well, so that you can export as a PDF and you can save it in a document file and things of that sort, so that the chats then can be accessed after the chat has finished. So have a look, Chip AI.
I will. Thanks a lot for that. So you started Virtual Teacher in 1998, didn't you?
Yes.
So this is, I mean, what's happening surely is beyond your wildest dreams, isn't it?
It is, but it's interesting because I've always I've worked in the tech space historically for a long time. In Australia, we had the Star Wars first course for kids under a Star Wars tent with Darth Vader, who came out to present prizes, etc., etc. It was the first time children had been taught about using technology. And I was involved with a team of 4, and we did the course. And I did basic programming back in the 80s. And it was it was the first step. We did logo programming, and we did databases, and we did a few other things, but it was very elementary. Now it's got to this stage, but I still believe schools haven't taken full advantage of even the technology they had up until this release with
Mm.
computers and iPads. I think a lot of the time it's harder than it should be because of the technology glitches that you get with equipment in schools and things of that sort. So we still don't have one-to-one devices in Australia for kids, which would be great. I mean, even if it was an iPad, they've got enough to do it, but a lot of them are not working or functioning or connected or whatever. So it's an interesting thing. I would just like to see kids use AI because it is engaging. And what you're losing is kids. The kids are bored.
Yeah.
The more I look at it, they're bored, which is sad. And AI can give you the information to make it not boring for any child. You can make it engaging for every kid. Because in a minute you can have, I mean, I was in a classroom the other day with some teachers who were looking at how AI could be used. And there was a Spanish kid. And I translated everything immediately into Spanish for that child on their iPad. Just went into ChatGPT, dropped in the text. There it was in Spanish. And all of a sudden, that child was engaged in the group activity that was being conducted rather than being excluded because of the language barrier.
Mm.
So it is such an asset. It's such an asset to be able to, do almost anything at a moment's notice. I wrote a paper years ago when I was writing for Classroom Magazine. It was called "Is There a Doctor in the Mouse?" And my thesis was, well, there is. Is there a doctor in the AI? Well, yes, there is. Do you have to check it like you have to check everything else? Do you have to make sure its statements are, relevant and honest? And yeah, sure. But I would have to check that with you, Pete.
Mm.
If you told me something, I wouldn't necessarily believe it. I'd double check it and research it.
Of course you would. Yeah. So what for you are the stubborn barriers then, if we're going to be a sort of tech-enabled education system? I mean, you mentioned one-to-one devices before, which is a stubborn problem in the UK too.
People just making the time to do it. What I find in Australia is there's rigid curriculum specifications, rigid outcomes. All of a sudden, everybody's using a PowerPoint for the entire day to have their lesson plan up on the whiteboard. There's no room for movement anywhere, I don't know. Did you see my board, A Recipe for Boring Kids?
Yes, I did.
So, and that's what happens, 45 minutes. Well, that's fine some of the time, but sometimes it extends way beyond 45 minutes. I gave a group of, I think they were 7 again, and they were using the indie robots with the little coloured squares and things of that sort. And I put them in a position where they were having to figure it out. I said, oh, okay, how would you switch this on? And then I put it on one of the squares and nothing happened. And I said, well, nothing's happening. What do we do next? And then I gave them everything and sent them away to figure it out. What did the coloured squares do? How did you switch the indie robot on? Now we're going to make a track. We're going to make a track with 2 right angles and a spin at the end. And I haven't got a spin block because some of them were missing. Okay, how do you make a spin without using a spin block? So it's almost like discovery learning has to come into it, where the teacher has to give up that control and that power of instructional learning and let the kids learn and guide them heavily.
Yeah.
And that's
Totally.
what I find. And these kids, you could see their eyes lit up. And I love the sparkling eyes. I just love it when kids are getting it and, oh, look at this. Look what I did. Look what I did. And one of them put a series of four right angles together, which meant they were making a spin without that action. And then they decided to make a rectangle with the blocks and give themselves the challenges and then share that with the rest of the group. And that's what AI can do, that because it can deliver to a child who's interested in this way information that specifically interests him exactly at the time that he's interested. Exactly.
Yeah. I wonder if we should have a separate podcast on the damage that PowerPoint has inflicted onto education. That'd be a
I
great one,
think
wouldn't
so.
it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how getting a bunch of kids to sit and watch a whiteboard. I mean, you're still teaching to the middle end. You're still
Mm.
teaching to your bell curve middle 30%, and you're losing the top and you're losing the bottom, and there's no other way to look at it. But to me, PowerPoints are interesting organizational tools, I guess, but I get bored with them.
Mm.
And I am depressed when I have the thought that another person is going to show me a PowerPoint presentation. It is boring, however fancy they are.
Yeah, it's still
And
death by PowerPoint, isn't it? It can be maiming by
yeah,
PowerPoint, but death at worst, of course. And of course, you're reading over text a lot of the time, which is like sitting on a train reading a novel and somebody reading the novel over your shoulder. Like, go away, I'm trying to read here.
yeah, and it doesn't work for most kids. The majority of the kids doesn't work for, especially now. You're getting more at the top and the bottom ends, a lot more because of the way our system is working. They've got more integration um, of children that are challenged in various ways, and PowerPoints don't work. And there's different pathways to learning beyond that very linear path, and that's what I find AI does. Is it allows you to learn in a non-linear fashion. So when you have the question, even if it's not meant to be taught till week 7, you can ask it, and that's that digital learning is how life for humans usually was. We learned along the way in not a logical order, particularly. And we learned right at the moment where the learning was relevant and important. And getting back to that, I think I am happy to see that. And AI makes that possible, makes it much more possible.
So what about setting up a new ideal school? What would that look like? So people wouldn't be on devices all day long because they'd feel bad if that were the case, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I don't use devices all day long for I use it more like a pencil or, a cup of coffee, really.
Yeah.
Every now and then you want to define a word, you want to check an answer out, you want to clarify something, you want to photograph it. My ideal day with kids, if I was setting up a school, I would do about practice and repetition of fundamental skills of reading and writing and mathematics, and I would plug them into things like Khan Academy and programs that did all of that boring work that teachers have to do repeatedly over and over again, learn phonics, learn spelling, everything. Plug them into programs that would allow them to progress at their own rate, give them instant feedback, and challenge them at the level of that they exactly were. So I'd spend a couple of hours a day covering basics, because you've got to do the basics. You've got to have children who can read. You've got to have children who can do basic mathematics, etc., and get it more complex as it goes on. Then after that, I'd have creativity and application of those skills. So I'd like for 4 hours, if that's what sort of day looks like. It's usually, I guess, another 3 hours that you have. application of those skills. So they're reading things that they want to be reading, they're building things that they want to be building, they're doing filmmaking. I gave a filmmaking course just recently that was accepted through NESA, which is our accreditation board, and they're doing electrical circuits. They're doing archaeology. One fun lesson that I gave was we went gold panning, and I bought some small gold pans and a sluice box, and we had it out on the balcony. And I bought some bunch of sand, and the kids were sluicing and they were panning for gold. And of course, it was varieties that I used because, you know, you can afford gold, but it's still heavy. And we were talking about the weight of the gold as opposed to the sand, and how when you shook the pans. And I had some kids doing filmmaking, photographing the kids who were doing the gold panning, and they were in groups actually. So they rotated that. And then at the end of the session, they put together a movie about the whole experience and commented on what their thinking was on the gold panning experience and how it felt to be a person panning for gold and how it was exciting to find it. And they created the movie, they created a reflection, they created everything. So there was iPads used in that, but by about, you know, maybe a third of the children in rotation with the other children. So I think it's a tool useful to be used with any experience, but not all the time. Mostly, I do prefer kids to work on devices in pairs or in threes, because I like the conversation that happens if that happens. So working on a device on their own, unless it's one of the programs that's a basic skills program, I prefer them to work in a group. So you don't sit them on all day. You use them for what they're useful for, you know, and then run outside and play.
Well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about AI doing the boring stuff so that we don't have to. And surely that should free us up to enjoy green space. I mean, you're in Australia, of course, where there's plenty of outdoors that needs to be
Yes.
enjoyed by kids for their well-being.
How was your day today?
So my
Your
day
study?
today is looking, well, it's very cold so far. It's sort of literally freezing point at the moment. So I'm going to do a little bit of working from home, doing things like this, meetings and writing and planning for teaching tomorrow. And then tomorrow I've got my favorite thing, which is 6 hours with student teachers of English, which is just like a great privilege, really. So I just help some secondary students of English make some progress with their teaching, and they're sort of a couple of months into it, and it's all very crazy, but they're making great progress. So yeah, so it's lots of preparation for that for tomorrow, which is just the best thing of the best thing ever.
That's where I would like to work more. I'm talking to the Maltese government at the moment about running a top-down program in bringing AI into schools. And there's so many very simple ways you can do that. I use a program called Quick Draw. I don't know if you've seen it.
Familiar with that?
And yeah, the depth you can go into in understanding about neural networks and AI, and in the back they can show you all the data sets. So you're starting the conversation. And then there's the teachable machine. Have you seen that one?
No.
There's in my the YouTube channel I've got, there's one on teachable machine in the AI collection. And the kids I had them teach the machine what a triangle was, what a square was, what a circle was. And they did 400 samples, because you can turn your videos on here, and they held it up to the screen and took 400 photos of each, and then trained the machine on that material to see how accurate the machine can be in determining a shape when it's held up in front of the screen. And it's interesting conversations, because the results were 97% sure that it's a triangle. And so you're then talking about mathematics, and you're then talking about how machine learning works, and all of that happens. And then you've got Canva, of course, which is just amazing for a lot of AI work if they haven't blocked the text to image like they have here.
Yeah.
So, you know, but so many really great, and the kids love it because they get good results. They're very proud of the results.
Yeah, and if it's
So,
something like Canva, which is so easy to use, the text doesn't get in the way of what they want to
no,
achieve, does it? That's the key. If it's easy to use, then they can make some progress. Beautiful, it really is. I'm so glad we made some time to catch up eventually. It's difficult with the time zones, of course,
Yes, it
but
is.
yeah,
Yes, it is.
nearly the end of the day for you. But I'm really, really grateful that you spent some time to speak to me. And you got your own podcast, of course.
Yes, I did an experimental podcast by taking into Notebook LM,
Mm,
and I took a white paper that I wrote and I just said to it, do this. There was a few things I didn't like, so I did what you're going to do to me. I edited them out and and had that, but it was experimental more than anything else. It was just to see how it would fly and if you could do it. But really interesting
yeah,
because it allows you to do summaries. It allows you to, if I could see it as if children were having problems engaging with the topic, chuck it in there, have it as a podcast between a two-hander podcast, much more engaging. The information is more interesting. And I just
exactly.
thought, well, isn't that amazing? So
It's the start of many conversations, isn't it? So get the students
it
to
is. It is.
produce this, no problems, right? What do you think of it? Be critical about it, and yeah, as you said before, it cuts out all the boring stuff. It does all the boring stuff for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I love Notebook LM.
Yeah.
The deep dive podcasts. I wonder what we'll think of them in 5 years' time, of course, but they're great now.
Yes. Yes. And experimenting with lip sync. I had a bunch of children doing
Mm,
that, but they were uploading still photos and then writing things in for their avatars or the characters to say, and then watching the lip sync, which was really amazing. And then one we did, which was a Christmas message, which we did with the Adobe character animation and
mm,
using the voices.
yeah,
And they're writing, they're reading, they're deciding what they like and what they don't like. They're reflecting on what's happening and letting me know whether they think it's useful or not useful, or whether what they'd like to do next. It's so powerful, and
mm,
they can feel like they're in charge of the learning and they're taking charge of what they will do next. I mean, mostly kids sit in a class, and if you told me 12 years, you're going to be told what to do every day, you're going to get no choices, I would I would be bored.
yeah. And your teachers are going to
So
be, yeah, that's right. Your teachers are going to be terrified of failure as well.
yes,
So, but
exactly. So we're
ah,
nearly at the end of this. So could you send me something and
I'll send
show
you
me what
something.
you end up with?
Yeah, I'll send you the raw audio if you like before I put it out. I'll do a bit of editing. Do you want me to do that?
No, just put it out. I don't care what you use. If I swore through this, it's, and you don't cut it out. No, I don't really care.
Do you?
But,
Do you?
anybody, but as I said, I'm looking to work somewhere in Europe in the new year. If anybody's up for a bit of a challenge for how to get AI into the classroom
Mhm.
in an easy, excellent way. I did a video called Steve, one of the ones, which was saves time is the first part. Saves
Mm,
time, easy to
mm,
use,
mm,
and great resources. And that's what you really where you really need to start with everybody with AI. But you need to get in the door
mm.
and have people listen to you for half an hour before that.
Yeah,
And that's the hardest part.
absolutely. Well, we'll stay in touch. You know how to find me on LinkedIn, and
I do.
hopefully we'll do some stuff in the future.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Well, you enjoyed your tomorrow. Sounds exciting with
Yeah, I
your
will do always.
language
Yeah,
students.
I
Use
think
that. Use the AI to translate for you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always well, they know I'm obsessed, so I try to hold back a little bit sometimes, but
I know. Me too. I sort of get a bit obsessed. But what was interesting too was some of people that I was working with when the language was an issue. Their pronunciation was poor, and they weren't able to be understood by other people.
mm,
So I got them to talk into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, if the pronunciation is poor, won't work properly. So you've got to improve the pronunciation to get those words to work. So we slowed it down sentence by sentence and got them to change the way they pronounce the words so that ChatGPT, and there was a purpose
mm,
to change how they spoke, because that was the way to get ChatGPT to work.
yeah.
So that was
Well, we've run out of time. I'm so sorry.
Yep,
I'm on the free version of Zoom, so I've run out of time.
me too. Why pay for anything? Less
Exactly.
than a minute. Okay, you have
Thanks,
a good
Cathy.
day.
And you.
I'm going to get back to my evening.
Oh, enjoy
See
your evening. Thank you very much.
you. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.